Centers represent the areas of your business that generate financial activity. Production centers represent the location in which that activity occurs. Production centers are used in transaction activity to identify the location that each transaction or portion of a transaction is associated with. Using production centers allows you to analyze your profitability by each location and or your costs by each location. To set up a production center, you're going to go to Setup, Profit in Production Centers, into Production Centers. Okay, you can see that I have a number of production centers set up. We have been setting up production centers that represent each field of production that we have. So you can see that we have several fields here, but we've also gone ahead and we have an orchard. So we've set up different orchards as production centers because I have two different companies here. I have one that's an orchard and one that's a farm, and they're in the same database. And then I've also raised livestock at that particular farm, and we have a north barn and a south barn that we want to track all of the financial activity for. So we've gone ahead and set up production centers for that. I do need to set up a production center for an additional field. So I'm going to go ahead and click New here. And that's going to bring up the production center entry screen. I'm going to call this the strain field. Okay, when you're setting up a production center, it's going to ask you for a type. You're going to go ahead and the abbreviation was optional, by the way. I went ahead and put an abbreviation in, but it was optional. You're going to go ahead and select from the list of types here. Now, it's important that you make sure that when you're identifying a crop type of production center, that you mark it as crop. And when you are identifying a livestock type of production center, you mark it as livestock. Any other type of production center, it doesn't really matter whether you mark it business, non-business, or other, but it is important for those two that you mark them appropriately. So I'm going to go ahead and choose crop. When I choose crop, it does open up all of this information down here at the bottom, and it also opens up this map tab over here. Okay, so those things are associated with crop production centers, but not with other production centers. Okay, if you have a crop production center, you can go ahead, and if you have some sort of property ID, you can put that property ID in here. You can go ahead and say what county it is and what township it is in. And then if you have some sort of legal description for that land, you can go ahead and put in the legal description. Those aren't necessary. Those are just informational fields for yourself. You can also identify the size of that production center. So if, let's say that it was 24.3 acres, I could go ahead and put in 24.3. Okay. The next tab, the map tab, is actually an optional tab. It allows you to bring in an actual map of this production center, and later on, when we're able to bring in the production from that production center, it'll allow us to see it all represented on a map. Okay, there's a number of different ways that you can create your production centers. First of all, it brings up a map here. So if I don't have the file that represents my field already, what I could do is I could go ahead and I could focus. I could just keep zoning in on the area. So if I keep going here and I want to zone in on the particular area where my fields are, I can go ahead and zone in on that particular area. And then the field that you're marking, you can begin marking by going ahead and saying that you're going to add a new one and you want to insert a shape. So I'm going to click Insert Shape, and then you can start drawing out a field. So if you have a particular field that you want to go ahead and just draw in, we can go ahead and draw it in. Okay, so each time I click, it just represents another point on the map. So doing multiple clicks around different round areas or curved things will allow me to draw that in. Okay, so the more clicks I have, the more angles I can take. Okay, so I can go ahead and keep mapping out this particular field. Okay, and to end it, you just double click on it, and it'll go ahead and bring in that particular field. And if I want to accept that, I can go ahead and accept that. If I still need to make some additional changes, I can do that by either moving some of these dots by editing them, or I could insert a shape. So let's say there's a piece within here that I don't farm. I could insert another shape into this shape, and I have to go ahead and click on the insert. And if I wanted to, I could take an area out of there and then accept the changes. Okay, and then that would go ahead and map out that field. So you can see the area that I mapped out was 192 acres. Okay, so that's what it calculated that area to be. So that's one way to go ahead and bring in a field, is just by going ahead and zoning on the area and drawing it yourself. I'm going to delete that field. Oops. Okay, let me select this one and then remove it. I might have to save it first and then come back in, and then I should be able to highlight it and remove it. Okay. Another way to bring a field map in would be to go ahead and bring it in from some other place. So there's a lot of programs out there that can create what we call shape files for your maps. You can get them at the FSA website for your area. You can download maps from your area. They have the shape files. Or if you have John Deere, you can connect to your My John Deere app to bring in files. To do that, you would need to click the import button and then choose a source and where you want to import it from. Since I have not authorized My John Deere right now, I can only bring in shape files from files. So I have downloaded them from my FSA office. So I can go to the shape files then, and I can go to the, I'm sorry, in the wrong folder. I could go to the Will County shape files, and I could go ahead and bring in the parcels that I downloaded. So I could go ahead and do that. And then if one of these particular parcels happens to represent this particular production center, I can go ahead and highlight that parcel and then click accept on it. And then that would bring in that particular parcel. I can still go ahead and edit that parcel. Like if I need to draw out an area that we don't farm, I can go ahead and edit that parcel still by going ahead and going to add and edit. And if I want to insert a new shape, I can do that. And let's say that I need to take an area out that's right over here at the edge. I could do that. And then accept those changes, and it'll take out that little area there, and then of course recalculates the number of acres for that area. So that's another way to bring in a map of a production center, is by going ahead and making sure that you download those shape files from either your FSA office, or there are other mapping software programs that will allow you to export your maps out to a shape file. Okay, and that would allow us to bring it into CenterPoint. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that so that I can remove that one again too. The third option then, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this then and remove it. Okay, the third option then would be to bring in those files from your My John Deere app. In order to do that though, you do need to go to settings first, and you do need to take and link it to your My John Deere account. So here under My John Deere, you would need to authorize your My John Deere program. And then you would be able to bring in your maps from there then. So it would allow you to import them from there. I can't do that because I don't have a My John Deere account. Okay, there are also some options here for your shape titles. What do you want to be on the title of it? Do you want it to be the name of the production center, or do you want it to show the number of acres on the title? Do you want it to be the reported area? Okay, so you can go ahead and change what's being viewed there. You can also go ahead and when you highlight that particular shape, you can tell it what items you want in the tooltip. So in the tooltip, I want to be able to see the name of the production center, the calculated area, and then the edited reported area. Okay, so those would all be options from that. Okay, for the shape files, you can go ahead and set a default folder where those shape files are going to be located, so that every time you go to bring in a new shape file, it goes to that folder to pull those shape files. Okay, and then if you're going to export these maps out eventually, you can create a default folder for where you want those maps exported. So those are some of the setting changes you have there. Okay, the maps though are not required to go ahead and have and use production centers. They are just an additional add-on that would allow you then later to go ahead and map out your production after you put your production into the system. Okay, so they are not required, they are optional, and you can choose to do them at a later time if you choose to not do it in your initial setup. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and I'm done with my production center.